does not seem to be working very well. So we're gonna not use that right now. I don't know what's going on there. Hold on. That was very choppy. I'm sorry. I will try again later. I want to welcome our guest, Dr. Peter Grinspoon, here because yeah, that was not good. We're gonna try that again later.
You'll get good at it one day, Lefty.
There's Sue. Hi, Sue. Let's get her on board here. What is up, everybody? Welcome to Thursday night's podcast of the Ignorance is No Excuse show. Hey.
Hello, everybody.
Spoken as you got it.
Hi, Peter.
How's it going?
Good.
Welcome back.
Glad to be back. Nice to see everybody.
I'm promoting your book.
What's that?
I said I'm promoting your book.
Oh, thank you. I hope it helps people. You know, it's a topic that nobody's written about before.
Not to the extent that you have. And remember the last time you were on, you were pretty excited about it, you know, and we've been kind of waiting, you know, and this is it, you know, we finally get to hear how it comes out. Now, full disclosure, I just had some extra time and got on YouTube and watched the All Across America podcast that you were on that was posted 9 hours ago.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like awesome. This is going to be fun because yeah, the conversation itself has a path almost of its own, and I'm looking forward to tonight because I learned a lot earlier. I feel like I cheated on something, but you know, but it was well worth it, you know. So congrats, man. It's been out how long now?
Thank you. It's been out 1 week and 2 days. So just last week, May 5th.
I'm excited to read it.
Is reading it now.
Thank you.
I have it in my Amazon cart. It's going to be I'm getting it tomorrow when I get paid, but I'm very anxious to read it because this is what I'm doing, senior cannabis education and advocacy.
That's wonderful. They need the education.
Oh God, yes.
Millions of seniors are using it and nobody tells them what to do.
No, I was I had read somewhere that one of the states, when they made recreational legal and gummies legal, the emergency room visits among seniors tripled because they all got their hands on some edibles with no guidance on what to do.
Right. That's exactly why I wrote the book about how to start low and go slow. You know, kids see their parents suffering and give them some gummies because they don't want them to suffer, but they give them like way too much. So then, you know, it's just like, why not? If they're going to do it, let's make it as safe as possible.
Yes, absolutely. And knowledge is power. And with education, I believe, comes awareness, and then advocacy, and then destigmatization. That's what I believe. And I think that's the way you have to do it. You have to educate first, and then you bring awareness with the education and you know, just keep it moving. But, you know, there is no education. And that's why I came into this industry, is because I was a senior who was like, what the hell? You know, and that's how it all started. And I haven't stopped since.
Well, good for you. Thanks for doing all that.
Yeah, I might point out that with all my knowledge, which I'm being sarcastic, I'm outpaced by everybody on the screen right now. Way back when, yeah, I was the guy. But with all that, I don't know if it was somebody on a podcast, I don't know if it was Sue or somebody, something about, you know, I know about start slow and, you know, go low. And it was like my guess on a starting dosage was like way out of line, apparently, and I didn't know it. And I'm proud to become educated when I'm wrong about something. And I got a minor reputation to uphold, and I can't do it that way. So the things that you will have to say, and that Liz has to say, and that everybody else has to say, keep me from looking stupid. And then when I'm not being stupid, I get taken seriously. Did that make sense? I'm pretty
Absolutely.
sure. Okay. Anyway, I defer.
Okay, Peter, the floor is yours.
Oh, well, how long do you want me to talk for? I could talk for days.
You can talk as long as you want.
Okay. Well,
Man after my own heart.
I wrote this book, Aging Well with Cannabis, Feel Better, Sleep Better, and Live Better with Marijuana and CBD.
See it again? You put it up again?
Oh, sure. I'm happy to put it up again. So, Aging Well with Cannabis, Feel Better, Sleep Better, and Live Better with Marijuana and CBD. And the reason I wrote it is because the demographic of people embracing medical cannabis most rapidly is seniors, people over age 65. And they're doing this because, for a number of reasons. It's very effective for them. And also, they get tired of being on all these pharmaceuticals with so many side effects. As you get older, you accumulate diagnoses, specialists, and pharmaceuticals. And I have patients that are on 10, 15, even 20 medication. It's called polypharmacy. They're on so many different medications. And this could be dangerous. This could be expensive. You could make a mistake. And seniors are really suffering from chronic pain. You know, there are tens of millions of people that suffer from chronic pain in our country. Many of them are seniors. Your backs, your knees, your hips wear out. We really weren't built to live to 70, 80, 90, and things just wear out. And your sleep gets worse as you age, and aging can be a very stressful process. And I think these are the reasons that seniors are turning towards medical cannabis. They're finding that it helps with their pain. It doesn't give them the side effects that opiates, for example, give them. You're spaced out. You can get addicted. Your balance is off. You're very constipated. A lot of people can't take the non-steroidals, your ibuprofen, your Advil, your naproxen, your diclofenac, because they can give you ulcers, they can cause bleeding, they can cause heart attacks, and they can wreck your kidneys. So for example, using chronic pain, we have millions of people, seniors in chronic pain, and there just aren't many treatment options for them. And they're discovering ahead of their doctors, they're discovering from each other on their own that cannabis can be really effective. Now, of course, cannabis isn't without its harms, and you have to be really careful with any medication in the senior population. You know, as we get older, people are on other medications. There are medication interactions. Generally speaking, your liver, your kidney doesn't work as well. Medications can be stronger. So you have to approach medical cannabis in seniors really, really carefully. But the fact is, millions of them are finding relief from these really difficult to treat conditions, and they're finding it with fewer side effects than they are with the traditional pharmaceuticals. And in many cases, it's enabling them to decrease the pharmaceuticals that they're taking. And the thing that always goes up when you study it is the health-related quality of life, meaning that people are able to go out and to do things and to do the activities, engage with their friends. And when you're out doing activities and engaging with your friends, you're not thinking about your pain. Your pain isn't as bad. It isn't as debilitating. So I think it's been a really successful experiment with seniors embracing cannabis, but it needs to be done safely. As was mentioned by, I believe, by Liz just a few minutes ago, emergency room visits are up for seniors because they take too big a dose, and no one's really telling them how much to take or how to get started. And you know, most cannabis educators are big believers in start low and go slow.
Slow and slow.
Exactly. You start with a very little bit and work your way up slowly. And that's what my book tells people how to do it. You don't want to take too big a dose of cannabis. Any of us who have experienced that, taken that brownie that was just too strong, know that like taking more cannabis than you want to take is really miserable experience. It's anxiety provoking, and it could even be medically dangerous. I mean, someone's older, they take way too big a dose of a brownie, or I know someone who accidentally drank 100 milligram soda in the fridge because his daughter left it there. And, you know, you could have palpitations and arrhythmias. It could be really, really dangerous. So it's critical that we educate all people about cannabis, but particularly seniors, because they're more vulnerable. And I really think with a good amount of education, we could really help them with their pain, their anxiety, their insomnia, their irritable bowel symptoms, their spasticity, if they have multiple sclerosis, if any of them unfortunately have cancer, their nausea and vomiting with the chemotherapy, you know, their mood, depressed mood. It could really cause a gentle euphoria and an increase in mood. I really think seniors are going to benefit, but again, it needs to be done carefully and safely.
Yes.
And nobody's the doctors don't know about this. They don't teach us anything helpful in medical school about cannabis. And doctors are coming along. They're becoming slowly more in favor of cannabis, medical cannabis at least, because they see their patients benefiting. but they really haven't been taught enough in medical school to have sensible kind of practical discussions with their patients. Like, so the end result is that patients don't know what to do or how to get started. And if you're an 80-year-old and you've never used cannabis, but you're excited to try it for your pain, and you walk into a dispensary, it's an absolutely bewildering process. It's really stress-inducing. There's so many types of cannabis, delivery methods, strains, paraphernalia, and it's really, so in my book, I talk very step by step about what it's like to go into the dispensary
Mhm.
and how to get started, just to try to demystify it and make it less stressful. And
I've done the same thing, and with modules and questions to ask, because it's not just the patients, it's the industry. The industry doesn't understand seniors, and like you said, they are the biggest and the fastest growing demographic in the industry, and in a year and a half or 2 years, we're going to have an explosion of 65-year-olds. Now, for me, it was like walking into the Twilight Zone. I came from the 80s. I smoked weed out of a soda can, and then I come to this, and there's dabs, and there's concentrates, and there's all this stuff, and it's so overwhelming. And you talk to people, and they just don't understand seniors. Seniors are a different breed, and they need education about us, and not just us needing education about the product. It goes both ways. And I am a firm believer in hiring seniors, especially in the cannabis industry. They can, once they learn, they can be really, really helpful. And I believe that, like I said before, education brings the awareness. And once people are aware and they're not existing, they're living, they're having a lifestyle. And that changes everything.
Peter, tell us about some of the research that you've been doing.
Well, I'm mostly a clinician educator, so I don't do much primary research. I mostly take care of patients. I've taken care of thousands of medical cannabis patients over the last 25 years. I've really taken care of medical cannabis patients my entire medical career. And so a lot of my research is sort of just from taking care of patients. And I obviously keep current with all the other research, but I found it like incredibly effective in helping people transition off other pharmaceuticals. I mean, if someone wants to stay on their opiates, a lot of people got put on the opiates in the last 20 years. You've all heard about that. Purdue Pharmaceuticals, it was peddled to doctors. Doctors overprescribed opiates. And there are a lot of what's called legacy patients that are stuck on their opiates. And if someone wants to stay on their opiates, they're going to stay on their opiates. But for example, I've had so many patients that you can decrease and eventually get off their opiates and treat their pain with medical cannabis. It's really just such a great example of harm reduction. So from what I've seen, we're just barely tapping the ability to help people. As more doctors get on board, again, what I was going to say before is that, like, because doctors aren't having these sensible discussions with their patients, because not that they're against it, they just are caught flat-footed. They don't really know what to say. No one's taught them anything about it. The patients end up getting their information from the bud tenders, which is just not a great thing. The bud tenders are like the friendliest, most enthusiastic people you'll ever meet, but they aren't medically trained. So one of my main goals has always been to educate doctors about cannabis. And in my clinical practice, I've seen mostly chronic pain, anxiety, and insomnia. But of course, we treat a lot of people with MS and a lot of people with colitis and a lot of people with like fibromyalgia, those weird pain syndromes.
Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing with MS patients.
Well, first of all, some MS patients won't try cannabis. Some people are just flat out against it. We have a long way to go in defeating the stigma, and getting people to understand that cannabis is just a medication like any other medication that has side effects, that works for most people, that doesn't work for everybody. I had an MS patient the other day say, he has really bad spasticity, really miserable, like failing baclofen, failing all the antispasmodics. They give him side effects. He's miserable. And I'm like, why don't you try a little bit of medical marijuana, it's legal in Massachusetts. I could coach you how to use it. And he said, my religion is against it. And I'm like, where does it say in the Bible that thou shalt not use cannabis to heal your spasticity? So I was really mystified by that. But it really helps with the pain, with the spasticity, and it does it in a way that's less sedating than the muscle relaxants. I mean, we do have some pretty effective muscle relaxants, but I don't know if you've ever tried Flexeril. I mean, I took it once.
Yeah.
I pulled my back and I was like asleep for like 12 hours. I mean, cannabis doesn't do that. Especially, it's important to remember the medical doses tend to be lower than the recreational doses. I mean, I think part of the problem is that the industry's really focused much more on recreational than on medical. And I'd love to see lower doses, more CBD, lower THC, so we have fewer of the accidental overdoses. And it would be easier for senior patients if the doses were a little bit lower. They don't usually need huge doses. But with the MS patients, their pain is better, their sleep is better, their mood is better because their pain and their sleep is better, and their mobility is just less constricted. I mean, if you see someone with MS walking, you just think, wow, that looks really painful. But then you add some cannabis in, it's still, they're not walking normally, but they look a lot more comfortable.
You know, it's
Do you want to share with Dr. Grinspoon your experience?
I was about to, because it's I had a long acrimonious relationship with the National Multiple Sclerosis Society when I found out my wife, whom I married when she was in a wheelchair for multiple sclerosis, but she could probably still kick my ass at that time. She just couldn't walk well, you know. And you know, for me, she was not a recreational consumer or an adult consumer. And I thought, well, okay, more for me. I'm not, you know, because I didn't know any better, you know. And I watched her go downhill a lot over the next 7 years. And then using microfilm at a library, because that's how I had to research then, I came across 1979 Journal of the American Medical Association article titled Marijuana may lessen MS spasticity. And then I read the animal studies where the Lewis rats and strain 13 guinea pigs had these amazing results that begged the next step of human study. But the MS Society was not only against it when I said, oh, my wife has MS, I'd like to know about marijuana. I mean, I already knew, but I wanted to see what they'd say. And amongst other things they sent me, they accidentally sent me two things: a confidential memo to all MS chapter societies on how to handle questions about marijuana for MS.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and also a survey of death row inmates in New York, like 600 of them or something like that. And apparently the majority say marijuana was complicit in their crime, which of course is trying to stay off the death penalty or something, you know. How dare they send me that? And then Dr. Stephen Reingold and I certainly went at it, and culminating in a walk down Fifth Avenue for Cheryl, her first time to New York, head of a Cures Not Wars parade, a May Day parade. And we went to 733 Third Avenue, the National MS Society's headquarters. And Dr. Reingold was there and didn't want to come down and talk to Cheryl. And then we were going to leave. The sign that she just had, it said Dr. Stephen Reingold is a medical marijuana coward and liar or something like that, and had her sign adorned with all these Marinol bottles, you know, each one worth like a lot of money, you know. And but the point is that they really ran from it. I mean, to where we would educate, handing out information at the MS walks. So when it was a walk one way and back, I'd make sure to get out with her kind of quick, so we saw everybody when we turned around. We could hand them stuff, and then we could be there to greet people when they finally made it back with information. And you know, so that and also she did an illegal test from her hospital bed in front of the State House, where there were state troopers present, because the Star Ledger said we were going to do that. And the Department of Health in New Jersey refused to accept the tincture that caused her spasticity to disappear when I lifted her up to put her in hospital. That, as you might imagine, with severe tonic spasticity, she was like a stiff board. It was very hard to even hold her, And then after she had her tincture and nothing else in between, it was gone. I mean, the difference is amazing. So anyway, with all that being said, what you were just saying about it's not taught in medical schools, and I know we might have discussed it last time you were on, because 14% was the amount of medical schools I believe at the time were teaching about the endocannabinoid system, and it apparently probably not changed a lot. Do you have any hope for that changing? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. They will be teaching the endocannabinoid system, because even if you are the most anti-cannabis person in the world, you think cannabis is satanic lettuce, you need to understand the endocannabinoid system to explain why. Number one. Number two, medical students and residents, younger doctors, are way more in favor of cannabis because they don't have the same stigma and the same old school kind of bunkered in mentality about it. And they're desperate for information. They bitterly complain that nobody's teaching them about it. And third of all, just with the general doctors coming around towards cannabis, following patients, doctors have followed patients in this issue always, but following patients. And then I also think the pharmaceutical industry, I think everybody is interested right now in the endocannabinoid system, just because it controls so many different things. So I think they're going to teach the endocannabinoid system. I'm a little bit worried. Like with cannabis, you could make it sound like a cure-all, or you could make it sound really scary and dangerous, depending on how you present it. And the truth is obviously somewhere in between. So I just hope the education about cannabis is balanced. Certainly you do want to talk about cannabis hyperemesis and accidental overdose, and some people do get addicted to it. But you also want to give the context that most people who use it do well and find relief.
I agree. And I also think even a step beyond that we should all be very familiar and should be when possible, the smartest person in the room about the detrimental side effects of cannabis on some people, to kind of cut that out at the beginning so it's not even in the air. It's taken care of, especially if there's going to be counterpoints made. You cut people down at the knees in the beginning, and then you get listened to a little bit better. And then another thing, you might have a really good opinion on this. Everything we were just talking about, it occurred to me, our president would probably say he agrees with. I don't know if he'd agree with it, but I'm just playing the way it's going. And it would fall totally in line with him to be outraged at only 14% of colleges in this. That's what's wrong with college, whatever. I can almost picture him going off on one of his weird tangents about demanding the ECS be studied and on and on. And I can think of nobody better to approach him than you.
Well, thank you.
Oh boy.
Hot potato to fire in the hole.
There are some cannabis advocates that have his ear. Howard Kessler, the head of the Commonwealth, project, and they definitely have his ear and got him to reschedule it from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. I mean, I don't want to get super political, but some of the big cannabis companies like Curaleaf funneled millions of dollars into Trump's super PAC, so that he would reschedule cannabis. And it's so transactional. This whole administration is so transactional. And I think sometimes people can lose, like the ends don't necessarily justify the means, right? I mean, if you're making the world a more dangerous place, but you have this one issue that you care so much about, I think people have to look at the big picture. But I would love to educate anybody about the endocannabinoid system. I think that might be a little bit of a sophisticated concept for our current president.
Yeah. Well,
Peter, what's going on? I'm sorry, Jim. Go ahead.
No, go on.
Okay. I have a question about you're still teaching at Harvard, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I not only teaching medicine, but I just became addiction certified. So I'm working and teaching in the addiction clinic.
Okay. So are you into teaching about the ECS or anything? Have you approached that yet with your students?
Well, what I do is I mostly teach other doctors, and like a practice will say, "Can you come talk to us about medical cannabis?" Because our patients are asking about it. and I'll go and I'll speak to them and I'll educate them. And they're like really just excited to learn. It was funny. I was asked to speak to our concierge medicine practice the other day. And I work at this inner city clinic in like, the trenches of primary care. And it was just really amazing to see how snazzy their office was. But they were really, really curious about medical cannabis. And so I spend a lot of time teaching doctors and nurses about medical cannabis. And I do teach medical students, but somehow I get assigned to teach them about addiction. I'm not quite sure why.
Because you're the addiction guy.
Yes, so, yeah.
Maybe that's why.
Yeah. You are working as an addiction specialist as well.
Yeah, I do both. I do primary care and I work in the addiction clinic. That's very rewarding work. But it's just like these people are down and out, and it just like it's so much more than getting them off the fentanyl. They need housing and like employment. You can't just like addiction is not just about not doing a drug. It's about kind of coming up with a pathway to have a healthier and more satisfying life.
Well,
And do you find, I'm sorry, Jim, do you find people can be addicted to just about anything?
Yeah, people can be addicted to gambling and to social media and certainly to eating and to all kinds of drugs. People definitely get addicted to cannabis. I treat cannabis addiction. It's usually like, stereotypically like the 24-year-old like male that's bunkered in his parents' basement, playing video games, not working, not socializing, puffing on his vape pen 60 times a day. Cannabis addiction isn't like life-threatening like what we see in the addiction clinic, like opiates and alcohol and so forth, but it could definitely derail people. And I think that when, some of the cannabis advocates say cannabis isn't addictive, I think that sort of does it, sort of what Jim was saying. We need to own the negatives as well as the positives. I think that sort of does us a disservice because clearly anything that makes you feel euphoric and relaxed can be addictive.
You also differentiate between addiction is not just addiction, one definition fits all. And again, cheating, having really enjoyed the podcast. I just saw you on before I'm watching you live on this podcast, which for me is like really a little confusing almost, because I just saw you saying, I'm like, oh, that was the other podcast. You talked about the negative consequences when there really aren't any overriding negative consequences, how that kind of blurs the definition or is important in including in a definition of a type or level or severity of addiction. If it doesn't have negative consequences and it has positive effects, yeah, it's a fine line. And could you just expound on that now? Because they didn't have benefit of, a preview.
Well, cannabis addiction is a really contentious topic. I think that the addiction psychiatrists really exaggerate the levels of cannabis addiction because there are 11 criteria for an addiction, loss of control, car accident, whatever. There's a whole checklist. And one of them is tolerance. You need more and more. And one of them is withdrawal. You stop using it, you get withdrawal symptoms. And you only need 2 of the 11 to get diagnosed with a cannabis addiction or cannabis use disorder. And any medical cannabis patient can get tolerance or withdrawal. That doesn't mean that you're addicted to cannabis. It could mean likely that you're using it with good effect. Now, for opiates, you also get tolerance and withdrawal, right? People get withdrawal from when they stop taking their Percocet and they need higher and higher doses. They get tolerance. Yep. In the definition of opiate addiction, they say we have an exclusion. It's called the opiate exclusion, that if you just have tolerance and withdrawal, you're not addicted to opiates because tolerance and withdrawal do not define an addiction to anything. But it's only because they don't think cannabis is a medicine that we don't have the same exclusion for cannabis. So that's why if you have tolerance and withdrawal, like most medical patients would, because they're using a medicine every day, you're called addicted to cannabis. And that's where we get these inflated statistics of like 1/3 of American adults are addicted to that use cannabis or addicted to it. So I think on the one hand, like the sort of prohibitionist psychiatrists really exaggerate how many people are addicted to cannabis. Mm-hmm. And on the other hand, the cannabis advocates say, well, I don't know anybody who's addicted. Cannabis is great. And they sort of minimize the addiction. And like with any other drug or medicine, there are good points and bad points. And it's all about like harnessing the benefits and minimizing the harms.
Well, I've been told that people, and cannabis doesn't cure anything. And I'm like, you can go to a drugstore and find me a drug that cures something. I'd appreciate seeing that. I mean, it's not about curing, and beyond that if it, well, all it does is make you feel good. If you're having other problems in your life, especially anxiety, yeah, that's medical. And if it centers you to where you have a better day, that's definably medical. So, but then, as you point out, you can't just say with an open brushstroke of all use is medical, because for one, I think you drive people away. They stop listening when you make a statement of that magnitude, all encompassing. So yeah, it's being well versed in the adverse effects that there are, that would really keep a conversation with equal time with an opposite point of view well in place. So, I'm really listening carefully here, because I haven't been the one making those points lately, but I'm getting kind of sucked back into it. So I need to own up,
Mafia, you can't leave. Peter, are you aware of the studies that are going on at the Olin Institute of Neuropsychiatry in, I think it's Connecticut? They're studying cannabis use disorder, and they have their group of people that they're dosing that come in. Are you familiar with that at all?
I've heard of it, but I'm not super familiar. I haven't read any of the papers.
Okay, I read some of it because I did edit one of their papers. But it's pretty interesting because, I am one of those people that poo-pooed the cannabis use disorder, because, it's a long time I've been out here. However, what they're coming up with is it's made me like turn around a little bit and really look at it. I know the cannabis hyperemesis. I know that, patients do come into the emergency departments. In fact, my two grandsons work right down the street, emergency room. And, of course, they're in their 20s, and I just tell patients, just, put your 2 feet together in the butterfly pose, or, eat some black peppercorns. That's the kind of information they're giving them, because they don't have anything else to give them, and we have been looking at how do we implement the education when patients do come in like that into emergency trauma departments. And, do we put into effect like a navigation system, like Harlem Hospital had for cancer patients, this same kind of concept, would it help? I don't know. I have a big, long history in emergency trauma. So I know how fast everybody moves, and I don't have to tell you this, and how fast patients do get seen and how slow anybody gets back to them, until they've finally really just come down on their own.
Right. Plenty of time to educate people when they're just waiting around the emergency. I have a patient who spends 1 to 4 nights every month in the emergency department with cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, and he can't stop using cannabis for even 3 months to find out if he actually has cannabis hyperemesis syndrome, because it's hard to distinguish it from cyclic vomiting syndrome unless if you stop cannabis for 3 months and you still have the vomiting, then it's cyclic vomiting syndrome. If you stop cannabis for 3 months and there's no more vomiting, then it was cannabis hyperemesis. And he spends literally so many nights in the emergency department, and I meet with him, I counsel him, and he just can't stop. And that would be a good example of like cannabis addiction. It's continued use despite negative consequences. It's making him absolutely miserable. It's disrupting his life. It's really dangerous. It is costing a ton of money, and he's just not a happy person because he's spending so much time in the ER. So, I treat people with cannabis addiction, and I just think that, if we could do more sensible education, it gets so distorted. One side's like, a third of people will get addicted, and the other side's like, nobody gets addicted. Now, people get so confused when there's contradictory information out there. And I just wish there were like a patch of information that we could all agree upon, and then we could expand it. Like, it helps with pain and insomnia, and it shouldn't be used by young teens and pregnant women. Like, we could just agree on that. And then as the research comes out, we can start to agree on more and more and more and more. I don't understand that cannabis has to be this contentious issue that we disagree upon. At the same time, it's an interesting statistic. Like 90% of Americans now believe in legal access to medical cannabis. And like, name anything that 90% of Americans agree upon. They don't agree that the sky's blue. So it is pretty amazing that cannabis is like the one thing that unites everybody, but the information is so contradictory. It's really confusing. That's another reason why I wrote this book. I mean, I incorporate, voices from both sides, but I try to go right down the middle, and people need to hear both sides. But it's really confusing to like a newcomer to cannabis. You look up anything, any aspect of it, and you get A and you get negative A, or you get yes and you get no. It's very confusing.
It's kind of like the what began with the opioid epidemic, right? Because many of the physicians went into pain management. It's a moneymaker, and I can say that freely because my husband is a surgeon. So people got confused. They really did, because opioids were so predominantly used for pain.
Mhm.
I remember standing in the middle of the emergency trauma department in Hackensack in 1996, I think it was, when the Joint Commission was coming in. And that's when they did the mandate with the pain scale, which I totally disagree with that pain scale, because if I was a patient coming in, and I said that loud and clear in there, I would say I have a 10, come on, really. But
right, everyone says 11. So
yeah. But the proper information wasn't being delivered. People weren't really aware. They were just knowing that their pain was being, helped, and regardless of what the side effects were. And then years later, all of the people started dying. I lost one of my own, and that was heartbreaking.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I know. 6 years. But she wouldn't listen either. We tried, but she didn't have the education, and she wasn't getting it. And that all she would say to me all the time was, "It's between me and my doctor," because that's where her trust was. Her trust was not in her family; it was in her doctor. And so that's why it's so important for this information to be delivered, on a professional level, and with some kind of thought process going on. Not just slamming patients with, "Okay, well, we're gonna give you some Hycodan," or whatever it is, without the info that if you do realize this is what it'll affect. These are the organs, like almost like a scare tactic has to be put in,
Yeah, I mean, you have to educate them about all the potential harms, but also not make them so scared that they're not going to treat their pain. It's a fine balance. I think like not treating severe pain is really inhumane. I think that's like the most important thing. I mean, getting back to what Jim was saying, like a lot of what doctors do is diagnose and treat disease, but a lot of what they do is alleviate suffering. And I think that's just as an important part of medicine, is diagnosing and treating things. And I think that's where cannabis really, really is going to play an increasing role in just helping people as they get older not suffer. There's no reason for people to be suffering.
There's an interesting conundrum we have in New Jersey when talking about addiction, primarily opiate addiction, and how cannabis can relieve it. And even more importantly, I find it explaining very easily to people the synergistic effect they have on each other, and personal experience. I mean, already knowing, being a cannabis consumer and really never taking opiates except for when I had I think it was a gallbladder operation. And, I was taking like a 5 milligram Percocet. I mean, really low level, and it didn't work. And then I didn't have any cannabis, and somebody stopped over with a joint, friend named Mike Kessler, and my pain was gone to the point that he had to put his hand on my shoulder to keep me from standing up. Jim, you're not, and it was like I had to be reined back in. So knowing this, New Jersey allows as an indication to our program, opiate abuse disorder, and that they do that for all the right reasons that I myself spent a lot of time banging into them. you know, and that they do that. They also have a program called Reach New Jersey. If you're addicted, you call this number, this hotline, and they'll give you references and everything, but they do not tell you that it allows you into New Jersey's medical cannabis program. Any suggestions of a way to approach that, or just how do you feel? I mean, you got to feel a little bit the same helplessness at times with what you can and can't do and you can't affect. But and then the more I hear and solidify what I feel about it, I don't know. I mean, getting medical schools to be a little more aggressive in including the endocannabinoid system somewhere in their regimens. I'd love to see it be 16% one day instead of 14%.
No, we're definitely getting there. I mean, you're absolutely right. Cannabis and opiates work really well together for pain. There's like a 1 + 1 = 3 phenomenon. Like,
yes,
you give people 2.5 milligrams of oxycodone in a lab, while you're you're putting your hand in hot water. How long could you keep it there, like a test of pain? And the 2.5 milligrams of oxycodone don't alleviate the pain. Then you give people 2.5 milligrams of THC, and it doesn't alleviate the pain. But you give them 2.5 milligrams of oxycodone and THC, and it measurably alleviates the pain. Working together, they work really well together. And that's another thing. If you have people on very high doses of opiates, chronic pain patients, you can really lower their doses by introducing medical cannabis. And the main predictor of opioid-related harms is what dose you're taking. So that's another way in which cannabis can really help people with chronic pain. If they're on opiates, you can give them many, many fewer opiates. I mean, the problem is that the field of addiction is sort of under the control of like the addiction psychiatrists, and they've been like the most anti-cannabis of all doctors like throughout history. So that's why it's been very slow to change. That's part of why I'm really happy to be certified in the addiction field and to provide another voice. But I can tell you the younger doctors, none of the younger doctors are against it. And I really think the medical school curriculums are going to get updated very quickly because people are really complaining.
Yeah, I hope so.
Lefty and Jim both, have experiences with weaning themselves off opioids with cannabis.
So do I. 20 years ago, absolutely.
That's right, you do. Yes, I'm sorry, I almost forgot you did.
No, I'm glad you guys did. I mean, the thing is, when you're withdrawing from opiates, you have pain, cramping, sweats, anxiety, diarrhea, stomach cramping, and nausea. And these are all the things that cannabis treats. It's like a great medication for opiate withdrawal syndrome. And then you eventually can get off the opiates. And then you have to work really hard to stay off the opiates. Either go to group support or take Suboxone or do something. It doesn't like magically disappear once you get the opiates out of your system. But a lot of people can't get off the opiates because the withdrawal symptoms are so horrible. And I think cannabis is really, we give people these medications, one for your stomach, one for your anxiety here and there. But I just think if we give them cannabis, we'd be hitting 5 things at once.
Yeah,
a lot more comfortable.
You just mentioned it sounded like the really quick part about any commercial for most medicines. I see, nausea, diarrhea, and vomiting. Some are getting clever and putting diarrhea separate from nausea and vomiting, and then later on in diarrhea. But it's like that cannabis is very much indicated. It could be for a lot of people. It seems like it would be better than other remedies for nausea. Like Zofran doesn't work as good as cannabis for the nausea that I faced when I had to take opiates when I had extreme injury on my feet. And there was just no choice. And the opiates weren't even working at the levels that they were. I was remembered 6 months later as the guy they couldn't help with his pain. I mean, by a nurse when Kathy took me back for a 6-month visit. And she was almost crying about, I'm sorry, we couldn't help your pain. And all I could do to help was the doctor who was the main guy for the orthopedic guy. Yeah, he was the main guy, and he had like 4 or 5 little white-coated ducklings with him come in, and they were there with their notes and everything. And it just so happened, as he was talking to me, wondering how it was doing, I was about to have a bout of nausea. So I said, I appreciate you prescribing the second best antiemetic for nausea. I do. And he go, obviously, what's the first? And I told him cannabis. And then he asked, well, how is the Zofran doing? And I felt it coming. And it was the first time I had a bout of vomiting without any audibles. I can't help that. And this was just like an example, almost like a movie stunt, because without changing my pace, I was able to do that and go not so good. And the guys with their little pens were trying not to smile at this amazing lesson that I just taught them on their rounds. So, all of this though, especially, do you find seniors, I mean, I know they have a lot of pain. I'm 73, you're not telling me nothing. But do they have around the same level of problem with opiates as people who are younger having problem with opiates? I mean, because they're the fastest growing population of consumers of this, but are they having problems with opiates?
Well, there's several problems with opiates. One is addiction. I don't think the rates are as high in seniors of opiate, but they're still very high. They're way higher than they need to be. And I think it's an under-addressed and under-discussed problem. And we're so good at treating opiate addiction with Suboxone and methadone that I really think a lot of seniors are suffering unnecessarily because of the stigma and because we could be treating it because they might be embarrassed to bring it up. The other thing is a lot of seniors have chronic pain and are on opiates. And I think that gets more dangerous as you get older, with the falls and the constipation and the somnolence. So I think that's another opiate-related problem, is that opiates are sort of a dangerous way to treat chronic pain in seniors, which is why I'm interested in transitioning them, if I can, to cannabis. Cannabis, again, not without harms, but obviously safer than opiates. So yeah, there are problems with opiates in seniors, a little under-discussed, under-studied, under-recognized. It's treatable. And I think we could really help them, especially with their pain, by getting them off some of the opiates and onto cannabis.
Yeah, man.
Peter, what about menopause? Let's talk about menopause.
Right. Well, menopause, women find cannabis to be really helpful for menopause. And, it's interesting. A lot of times people find cannabis helpful for these syndromes that we're not particularly good at treating with traditional pharmaceuticals. And menopause would be a good example of that. But people find that it helps with the anxiety, with the insomnia, and that there's some indication that it helps with the hot flashes. It can really help people tolerate the hot flashes and make the hot flashes less intense. So I think that menopause is a huge area where people are adopting. That isn't really seniors. My book was targeted for 65 and older, and menopause average age, 50, 51. But I think it's really, really important use of cannabis. The rates are skyrocketing, and people are finding it really beneficial.
Some of the products that are being utilized are, tampons. Also what they were giving out as estradiol cream is now is being applied with some cannabis. But these are through the private industry, the underground,
Right.
and it's helping. It's helping. I know for me myself. My grandmother said this: hot flashes never go away, and they don't. However, I did notice the difference way back, and it did help. It really did help. Do they still come? Yeah, they still come, but not as that big surge, that electrical surge we get.
So my dad had prostate cancer, and he had to have hormone therapy that gave him really bad hot flashes. And he said a puff or two would make them so much better. Not go away, not be, still unpleasant, but way better than they were without the cannabis. So I watched him take a puff or two, and then he'd stop sweating. He'd seem more comfortable. He'd seem more relaxed. It's just pretty dramatic.
Yeah. Makes it tolerable.
And what about what do you think about, okay, being that you're in the addiction arena, what do you think about the many rehabs now that are really kind of advertising about cannabis use disorder to attract more patients? Because we know there's that side of the rehabs that they'll draw you in.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of rehab. When I was addicted 20 years ago, the medical board sent me to this rehab for 90 days.
Mhm.
And it was like the least scientific based thing I've ever gone through.
Wow.
And a lot of them don't even use like methadone or Suboxone or like basic medications that we use to treat opiate use disorder. So I don't think rehab's like a great way to treat addiction anyways. I think people don't use drugs in rehab because they don't have access to them. And then the minute they get out, they start using drugs again because they just go to these 12-step meetings. There's no science involved in treating them. Now, for cannabis use disorder, there isn't a good treatment for it. There's no FDA-approved medication for cannabis use disorder. I tend to think that, social support, like groups like Smart Recovery, help. And I think that you could treat some of the symptoms of the withdrawal. If they have insomnia, give them something to help them sleep. I think you can make people a lot more comfortable. But I just don't think sitting in rehab is a very effective way. I would bet anything if you study that, the rates of like remission at 6 months would be extremely low. There's nothing about rehab that strikes me as it would be helpful. The one thing is there is group support. So the group support would help. But and people, maybe their brains can get a break from it if they're stuck in rehab for 30 days. They're not smoking weed. But generally speaking, I don't find rehab to be particularly helpful. And it's sort of predatory to kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a lot that's predatory about the rehab industry. I think clinics like ours, where we just keep people in their home environment so they learn how to deal with their home stressors and their triggers and give them the tools that they need, whether medical or psychosocial or just like social support. I think that's a lot more effective than like putting someone away in rehab for 30 days and then having them come back. I don't think that accomplishes anything.
Well, the recidivism statistics of people going through your standard 30-day rehab or whatever kind of speak for themselves. I don't know what the numbers exactly are, but the fact that so many people are back for the third, fourth, fifth time, in not really that long of a time. If that was the same of other, say, pharmaceuticals, had that low of a success rate, they wouldn't be a successful pharmaceutical. And yet the rehab industry does just fine on it. So I find it hard myself to, you go to any committee hearing about anything to do with cannabis in New Jersey, and there's going to draw people from all over to tell you why it shouldn't happen. And most of it is just like, well, I don't have to tell anybody here, how that works out. That's why I favor using a lot of what you said with my time when I speak. I usually say stuff like, you're going to hear about, almost like a lawyer would when he gets the first shot, because some of the people's MO on how they're going to proceed at that. And you really can cut them off at the knees. And, I did that one time with a man named David Evans on It's Your Call, Lynn Doyle, a pretty popular show back in the day out of Philadelphia. And I did that with him. And then he instinctively went right to it with his time to speak. He just verified what I said he was going to talk about. And he did this so much. He just had a wheel that spun. And once he started saying something and it spun right in that, I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. It was thoroughly embarrassing for him. So to know what they're going to say and stipulate what I can in the beginning, which is not entirely untrue, saying things like that, I find I get more well received. And that's why I rely on the things I hear, like on a night like tonight, to increase my increase in my arsenal of how I might respond to something, but more importantly, if I know what's coming, how I can cut them down at the knees. And this helps me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Can you give me 30 seconds? Someone's like banging at the door. Let me just tell them to go away. Can you guys give me like 30 seconds?
Take a minute.
Yeah.
Oh, this is so much fun tonight. It really
tell them about the Miller Amendment. There's another Miller Amendment I came across in Jersey.
Oh,
yeah, but that's okay. We'll change it to the Jim Miller Amendment.
Yeah, you can tell about that. I don't want to, Well, I do want to,
Of course you do.
Come on, Kathy, get to it.
Hi, Kathy, by the way.
That's a little chess BT.
Well, this is nice, you know, and because, well, she can't.
Time went
She can't
quickly.
get it. You know, Lefty, Kathy could be watching this from where she normally sits. So I in a way, this is kind of nice that you weren't able to provide her. I mean, it's like, how do you get on to watch, not to be on, not the normal link we get on at. And
Sorry about that. Crisis averted.
all right.
I'm back. So,
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm looking at your poker face with crisis averted, and I wasn't buying it for a second. All right.
no, it's totally fine.
That's what I like about Zoom meetings. I mean, to me, hearing something is one thing, and which is way better for me than reading it, except for I can't focus on, I can't stop it, you know, but I can always go back and absorb this, like right after we do it, it's posted the next day. And, you know, so that's also good. But yeah, crisis averted. That's what we're all about, you know, try to. And I do look forward to reading your book, you know, and I don't know if it was just in my mind or what, but when I saw Lefty hold it up, it reminded me of Dr. Lester Grinspoon's book cover. I think it had like a marijuana leaf on it. What was that? Forbidden Medicine, was that?
Oh, yeah, Marijuana the Forbidden. That's a great book, actually.
It was great.
A great writer. He everybody remembers him for his advocacy. But
Oh, that was a great book.
actually, all of his books are really well written. I mean, he wrote his book Psychedelic Drugs Reconsidered in 1979. That was a masterpiece.
Well, to that effect, you know, I was talking with Kathy before, and I said, you know what I really want to do is I'm going to enjoy Peter's Grinspoon's book, and then I want to mail it to him with return sending available, so he might autograph it and say something, and then I could have a father and son similar looking books. It'd be really cool. And I might be one of the few people that would have that too. You know?
Liz, did you say that you ordered it on Amazon?
Yeah, you can order it on Amazon.
Yeah. Yep.
She's my better 2/3. I call her that because I know she's going to get on it right away.
And it's in bookstores too.
It is in Barnes and Noble. I did see it there Sunday.
Yeah, it's in bookstores too. It's really fun to see it in the bookstore.
Oh, I haven't been to a bookstore in years for some reason. I mean,
Barnes and Noble.
yeah, well, I love Barnes. Yeah, I get lost in a bookstore looking around. Bookstores and like Home Depot. I know, different stuff, but I go in, there's all sorts of stuff that I didn't go in for that I can't get right out. So yeah, I'm gonna
In the candy store.
All right.
So
Well,
Peter, what's your next venture?
Well, it's interesting. I'm starting to write fiction now that I've had 3 nonfiction books. So I'm learning how to write fiction. Fiction to me, it's always what I read, and it's always, I think it's like, I love good writing, and I've always wanted to write fiction. And so I'm actually going next week to this intensive writing course in Ireland, and I'm going to start the journey of writing fiction. There might be another book in me. I'm just thinking about it, like a how-to book on addiction, like how to navigate it for families and for patients. What are the pros and cons of rehabs? What are the different medications? What is addiction? And how can you best deal with a family member that's addicted? I'm thinking possibly of writing that book, but I'm also thinking of just switching completely into fiction because I just love writing and I love fiction. And then, you know, I'll keep going as a primary care doctor. And you know, now that I'm addiction certified, a big component of psychedelic medicine is treating addiction. So I would love to, at some point, be merging, I don't know exactly how yet, my desire to treat addiction with my interest in psychedelic drugs.
that's really interesting. And, you know, among other things in my sphere and my life, Cheryl's son, Carl, had a very severe opiate addiction. And Dana Beal knew where he could go in Amsterdam to have an ibogaine treatment. And, you know, this was not at a doctor's clinical setting. It was somebody who was very successful at it, knowledgeable, and it didn't cost an arm and a leg. And what it took to get him an expedited passport and to delay a court case because he's going to leave the country, which he's not supposed to do. So in between court cases a month apart, he had an intense experience, a waking dream, a paralytic waking dream. And for 3 days later, he really thought he had gone to Africa. He was telling me a story, but I was already told by the person taking care of him that he's really doing good. So I wasn't worried, you know. And it was so interesting because he was telling me how he went to Africa and there was a village that was being terrorized by a beast and they couldn't do anything about it. So he had to go off and he killed it and he brought back its head. And he's telling me this. But I was so enthralled with, holy shit, this woman's saying he's good. And honestly, it didn't jump off and bite me like it should. It was addiction was the beast, and he cut off its head and he brought it. And then when he got back 10 days later, he was sleeping no more than 3 hours a night. He felt good. He felt motivated. It had nothing to do with drugs. And then he said, Jim, I need you give me a ride by where I used to score, you know? I said, all right. So we went to, it was in Freehold, New Jersey. And we rode there and we're on this road and he turn around. And I turned around and left. And he says, my blood, oh my God, it was boiling. And wow, you know, I mean, it was incredible. But it's not the kind of style or degree of treatment that anybody's going to get in a clinical setting. But never mind that. It showed me, like, shoved it in my face, how incredible it was. And 2 weeks later, somebody said, oh, you want to smoke a cigarette? And before he thought about it, he said, yeah, all right. He hadn't had a cigarette the whole time and didn't even realize it as he was getting reassimilating. That is amazing. And whatever can be used in a more clinical setting from that experience that I had is, yeah, man, that's important. And I'm glad you recognize it, but I'm also glad it doesn't pull you away from medical cannabis things, because sometimes in the world of advocacy, you know, we get a little more involved with one thing and give a little less attention to another. And, you know, that has its drawbacks, but, oh, it absolutely is good. And same thing, you know, with the soul side, I'm no stranger to it. I picked some mushrooms from underneath some cow dung in Jacksonville, Florida in 1970. And that was an amazing experience. And nonetheless, that you're able to say that it has the lowest level of side effects out of 20, was that Schedule 1?
They had all the drugs and how dangerous they were.
Okay.
The most dangerous, of course, was alcohol. Needless to say, it was alcohol. Then there was like fentanyl and methamphetamine. Cannabis was in the middle, and part of it was danger to self, and part of it was danger to society. And the safest drug was, you're right, psilocybin magic mushrooms, which is
Now I could say that
in Schedule 1. They're therapeutically beneficial. They've been given emergency breakthrough designation to help people. And they're still in Schedule 1 in the Controlled Substances Act. It's so outdated. All of this stuff is.
When you talk
but they seem to be moving that in a variety of states, though.
And President Trump, just speaking to Ibogaine, he just did a executive order allocating $50 million towards Ibogaine research. Now, Ibogaine is weird how it helps people with addiction and how they don't even seem to go cold turkey. They just seem to be off their addiction.
It was described as a honeymoon period where if you really want to get off, Carl couldn't have been more motivated. If you really want to, that's the time, because you can just, he said, just not do it. It's like feeling like you're not reacting like you're addicted. I wouldn't know how to describe it, you know.
Does Ibogaine last? You know, are there, has there been any research into see how long?
Well, they need to study it. A lot of it's great question. A lot of it's been done like in Mexico in these underground clinics. So there hasn't been a lot of study. They're just starting to study it mostly in veterans. And there's a lot of support for studying it in veterans. I had a close friend that couldn't control her drinking, and she was drinking like 2 bottles of wine a night. And she went to Costa Rica and did Ibogaine. And she didn't even think of alcohol at all when she came back. And not only that, just as Jim was saying, she stopped smoking, and that wasn't even one of her goals. She stopped smoking cigarettes.
There you
It
go.
was like this miracle cure. But then about 6 months later, the cigarettes and the alcohol started creeping back in. So I don't think it's like a permanent cure, but and ibogaine is a really intense experience. First of all, you have to have like a heart monitor because it can cause a heart arrhythmia, which could be lethal. But also, it's like the Mount Everest of psychedelics. Like it's 12, 24 hours long. It's really immersive. It's really intense. This isn't taking magic mushrooms with your friends out in the woods for an afternoon. This is like a really, really intense experience. I don't think it's for to be taken lightly. But that said, it is really amazing the stories you hear in the papers I've read about
It needs maintenance too, though, and unfortunately, that was not part of the equally stressed. That you're going to have honeymoon period, and that you're going to need maintenance down the road, and not knowing that and being out of my sphere. Carl didn't know it, and he re-addicted and died. So it's kind of a sad story, but there was no maintenance afterwards, no maintenance doses, and that might have saved his life.
So that was going to be my next question about maintenance. Just what you just said, Jim.
Yeah, that was not part of the serious nature of the beginning. And this was well, he originally went there straight from a medical cannabis demonstration outside the governor's mansion in Trenton, because I was taking care of him for the 2 weeks before. He had to go get on methadone 2 weeks before, once we were getting the passport, because didn't want him to get in trouble because he's addicted. It's going to be in 2 weeks. I can't be there 24 hours a day. So he went on methadone, but to do that, you got to test dirty. So he had to go deliberately score heroin, take it, and then go get methadone. All that to get to ibogaine, in another country. So
we have the weirdest system. We really do, and it doesn't serve people that well. But I'm like, they all need maintenance. So I mean, like, people on ketamine come out of these like treatment-resistant depressions in like 40 minutes. It's absolutely spectacular. It's just amazing. But it doesn't last. After about 6 weeks, it goes away. So you have to keep getting treatments. It lasts more if you get ketamine-assisted therapy as opposed to just the drug. But even with just the drug, it lasts for a while and then it goes away. You need it just doesn't disappear forever. It's not like you're taking out an appendix and then it's gone. Like, it still can creep back.
I took a course 2 years ago in psychedelics, and not because I needed to learn something about them, because I think I'm pretty well versed in psychedelics growing up when I did. However, the reason why I did was because I wanted to see what this was going to be geared towards, who is going to be doing this, who is going to be implementing this kind of treatment. And for the most part, of course, it's all psychiatrists, and there were 2 nurses there, and myself was one of them, and the rest were all therapists. Now, my opinion, and it's just my opinion, I found that to be unsafe. I even went and toured a couple of ketamine clinics. Like, there's a few of them here in Bergen County. And, they were all very nice. But when I said to the psychiatrist, well, who's the sitter? Like, who's with these patients? You're walking around. Like, do you have a therapist here? Do you have a nurse here? And he said, well, no, because this is not geared for nurses. And, that's what I was looking for. Why not?
People need supervision and they need guidance. It's not just about the drug. It's about the drug and the changes you make. So It's right. And it could be this big business, these ketamine clinics. It literally, to a certain extent, could be like drugs for money. And I'm sure it helps people, but they're just like with any of the stuff, there are like better ways to do it and worse ways to do it. And, when there's a lot of money involved, people just want to make money.
But ketamine's an anesthetic. And that's where I get confused. Like when I was a burn ICU nurse, we tried ketamine on our patients because, burn patients go through burn psychosis. So they disassociate. They don't even know who they are anymore, And no matter what we attempted, and ketamine was one of them, didn't help. It just had, it just had to play itself out. The only thing we could really do was try to help them with their pain, but we stopped using it because of that.
Right. Well, I mean, it was a veterinary anesthetic, and now it's a human anesthetic, and they use it in surgeries. It's also a party drug, Special
Yeah.
K.
Special
But
K.
but for whatever reason, I don't think they really understand why yet. It really can help alleviate people's depression like really, really quickly. It's really, even like suicidal patients can become like, and especially people with treatment resistant depression, they failed 2 or 3 other drugs. There's like nothing else to give them. And these are the people that are really benefiting from ketamine. So I couldn't tell you how or why it works, but it is pretty amazing that it works.
That it works, yeah, but it's addictive, right?
Well, yeah, there is ketamine use disorder, right? People can get addicted to it. I don't think it's necessarily sort of like with cannabis. It's not like really the medical patients that are getting addicted. They're using it modestly for a specific purpose and low doses. You think of like the younger recreational person that's using dabs, they tend to get more addicted. I think with ketamine, you can get addicted, but I think that's more like people in the party scene that use it all the time. I haven't heard, it's pretty new, but still I haven't heard that much about people getting addicted in the clinics.
Well, Matthew Perry, I think, was a good example. I mean, he wrote a book before he died, and then what did he die from? He died from ketamine. But did you read his book?
I didn't read his book, but I know a lot about his death. I mean, it was really sad. He was so depressed. He was using it by himself. I mean, when he fell into his hot tub, like the same thing could have happened if he got drunk by himself and fell into his hot tub, right? He was just
Absolutely.
like, it wasn't necessarily the ketamine per se, but the people around him were just like not helpful at all. They were just like giving him however much he wanted and like not putting any breaks or limits, or nobody offered to get him help. I mean, I think that celebrities can have a really hard time getting help for their addiction because they're just surrounded by people that are fawning over them and will just hand them whatever drugs they want. So you feel really bad for Matt Perry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say also. It's that whole Hollywood scene. I mean, he had his personal assistant who was, giving him shots in the car, and the ketamine queen of Hollywood. She's gone to jail now. She's gone to prison for supplying so much. So I don't know.
The craziest story was Michael Jackson when he had that crazy doctor that would use anesthesia to put him asleep at night,
propofol,
and then turn off the propofol when you wanted to wake up. That's literally like the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. So crazy.
I know, because you do just wake up.
Propofol. I mean, that's like a major anesthetic. It's like being under anesthesia every night. I mean, I have insomnia, like a lot of people do, but I wouldn't use propofol of all the medications.
How many drugs are usually in anesthesia?
Well, I think I've heard in the average surgery, they use about 11 different drugs. It depends how long the surgery is and how deep the anesthesia needs to be, but they use a lot of different drugs. They really monitor the like blood pressure and the respiration and, the consciousness level. I think anesthesia, it seems really simple. You give someone gas, they fall asleep, they wake up, the surgery's over. I think it's actually really, really complicated, and they use a lot of different drugs.
Yeah.
They used Suboxone in mine and ketamine in mine. And I think that's what helped me stay off the opiates during my 2-level cervical fusion. I didn't take any opiates for that surgery. I just used cannabis. And I think the anesthesia with all the extra drugs in there, with the half-lives, I think that kept me going for a few weeks till it healed.
That's great that you're able to use cannabis. That's so much safer. When I had spinal surgery, I needed opiates for like 4 days, and then I could transition to cannabis and throw away the rest of the opiates. So it was like definitely better to have the cannabis. It gets people off the opiates more quickly. That's really great that you didn't need opiates at all. I think opiates should be available for people if they need them, though, because nobody wants to suffer.
Lefty, isn't that what you did, though? Because you were on the opioids for what, 10 years?
Yeah, I was on opiates for 10 years, and I didn't want to go back on them. So I was nervous that, I had to take them, but I had them sitting on my dresser. They were sitting there if I needed them, but I used cannabis tincture, cannabis oils, cannabis suppositories. Every orifice was full of cannabis, and it worked.
That's great. That's a great story. It's interesting because I was addicted to opiates 20 years ago, and I got hit by a car 3 years ago and had to have 3 different surgeries, and I had to deal with the do I want to take opiates? Do I not want to take opiates? But I found that 20 years later, I'm a happier person. I'm in a much better place in my life. The opiates didn't have the same level of attraction for me that they did originally. But good for you. I mean, some people definitely get re-addicted when they get re-exposed after surgery. But the other problem with that is that the doctors are like, oh, you were addicted, we're not going to give you any opiates. It's like, you can't not treat people's pain. That's like the worst case scenario. That's like torturing people. So I'm glad, Lefty, that you had them by your bedside and that the doctor was considerate enough to give you some in case you needed them, because we just shouldn't be in the business of torturing people.
And with everything being said, at the end of the day, or the end of the life more appropriately, it gives people, as you were talking about with your dad, you have a quality of end of life the last time you're with somebody. And my heart goes out to people who find that out too late, because they feel conflicted and guilty that they should have known, and then somebody else they know that has that experience and find that it was more serene and fitting and no baggage, And to me, the end of life is like, there's no do-overs. There's no possible going back and doing anything different. So you really need to get it right if you can the first time.
Well, Jim, that's such an important point, and I write about that in my book. Cannabis has a huge role in end-of-life care. I mean, if someone's on opiates, you get hospice, and what do? They just drug you with benzodiazepines and opiates. They just knock you out. Sue knows this. And then you don't really get to say goodbye to anybody. And if someone's in excruciating pain, of course they might need the opiates. But for a lot of people, they can get away with using cannabis instead of the opiates, and potentially instead of the benzodiazepines. So my dad had maybe 2 doses of morphine in the last month of his life. We used cannabis, and it was really amazing. The night before he died, we didn't know it was the night before he died, but the night before he died, we had a Zoom birthday visit with the whole family for him, his kids, his grandkids, and he even made a joke. And then he passed away in his sleep, which is, if you ask me, the best way to go. If I die in my sleep, I'm a happy person, but not yet. But it was just amazing how, if we had used all the opiates that the hospice wanted us to use, he would have had a much worse quality of life. So I think cannabis is, with the pain, the anxiety, the insomnia, I think cannabis has a huge role to play, as do psychedelics. That's a different conversation. But cannabis, about fear of death. But cannabis can make people so much more comfortable, yet still sort of cognizant, so they could be with and say goodbye to people. I think it's a huge role.
And for somebody not to know that you can bring this to people, especially through your writing and your book and podcasts and everything else you do, that you then don't have unnecessary baggage from your father's passing and how it turned out. And that's one of the things I'm happiest about of all I went through with Cheryl, is that at the end it was perfect. I mean, well, actually, she didn't have full consciousness for 12 hours at least, but it was perfect. And it's the no baggage, I mean, so that I can go back and talk and relive it without paying a price and needing cannabis myself because of what's probably some form of PTSD from a couple of decades of, watching it all happen and being helpless. But when I wasn't helpless is what balances it out, so that you can play a part, and Liz can play a part in senior, and everybody in seniors knowing this, because they're the ones that are closer to death, and they're the ones that are going to watch more people around them die. And that's what needs to really spread quickest amongst the senior population. They need to know that.
Well, I agree. I think what you do is so important. I mean, literally, these are the people that need the education, immediately, and you could just make it so much safer and more comfortable for them. It's just, it's critical.
Thank you.
Liz is good. She's out there. You're all over the place.
Yeah, I am all over the place.
Yeah, and it's good.
Thank you. But you know, it's just as much my journey as it is for everybody else. I'm learning as I go and I'm sharing. And I'm not afraid to ask the questions.
I think that's the problem too, though. People are afraid. They're afraid to ask questions because they're afraid they'll get in trouble. There's that fear factor that the general public likes to put out there.
Mhm.
Well, not only that, it's only legal for medical use in 40 states. There are 10 states where like you don't have medical marijuana, and these people still get cancer. They still have chemotherapy. They still need medical marijuana. Just if you're in Idaho, you don't blame them for not asking questions. You really don't get in trouble.
Right.
I had the experience of one of the building decks that, and I was younger. I guess I would have been 48 or something like that, 47.
Yeah.
And I was doing what I do with Cheryl, and we built a deck for a guy in a senior community, and he was maybe mid 70s or something. He's pretty vibrant, and but he had this terrible knee pain, and I curiously suggested, being who and how I am, you ever consider that? And he goes, oh yeah, I sure would, but I don't have any. So I said, listen, I'll roll you a couple of joints. And he was thrilled. So I rolled him a couple of joints. It was the end of the day. I was giving it to him, and he goes, oh, my wife's home. I got to get these somewhere. And I go like, oh, you don't want to get caught? No, she's going to want one. That opened my eyes to this whole behind the scenes thing you don't see. But in effect, it started because it was going to help his knee, but he was well aware he was going to enjoy the cure or the temporary relief of it. So it really does me good to see such capable horizons, people bringing this off the horizon, right in front of me. Here are a couple of people that are, it's your a life's mission, sort of. And that's good because everybody having one really particular road means that's a road that I can glean information from, but I don't have to do myself. So I can have focus on something, which I do. And that's very healthy to see people all going the same way, but having expertise that they really trust. And we educate each other along the way. So that's good. Yeah. I've had a great time. And
This has been wonderful. It really has. And I'm really excited. I cannot wait to get your book.
I only took 2 tokes while I was listening to you tonight. that's high esteem for me. It's like, oh, I'm just forgetting to, But that's more my relaxation period than any intense pain. So, that's fitting. But
how do people get your book?
Well, it's in bookstores. It's in, a lot of bookstores, Barnes and Nobles, all the big bookstores. But they could get it on, if they can get it at Amazon. Just look up, Aging Well with Cannabis on Amazon. They can get it on Amazon. If they really hate Amazon, like some people do, they can get it online at Barnes and Nobles, or they can get it just from the publisher, just Hachette Publishing. They could just type in the book, the publisher comes up, and they could buy it directly from the publisher. But right now it's pretty easy to find.
You ever do any book signings?
Yeah, I have one coming up in a couple months at Brookline Booksmith. This can be really fun. Looking forward to it.
Have you done that before there already?
Yeah. No, I've done it. With the last 2 books, I did
books,
signings. Yeah, it's really a lot of fun.
Oh, that was what I was going to wonder. It must be interesting interacting with people that already know enough to want to buy and read your book. That's got to be pretty rewarding in and of itself. To have quick one-on-one time on with people whose lives you may be changing for the better.
No, it's absolutely wonderful. My first book, Free Refills, about my opiate addiction, my memoir. There were some pretty tough stories that I heard.
Wow.
I mean, everybody who was there had somebody who they had lost. So it was a really rewarding and meaningful experience, but it was not like lighthearted fun. We got into some very deep and heavy conversation. So I really cherish those memories, but it was rough. I mean, it's the opiate thing's really tough.
What kind of fiction might you write about if you write a fiction book? I mean, that covers such a broad swath. I mean, something that you could compare it to, but not really necessarily that, because I love certain kinds of fiction, and some don't work for me. And if yours doesn't work for me, I'm not going to tell you. But
Well, I'm interested in comedy. I think comedy is really fun to write.
really, oh, I'd love to see that. You know, that
Yeah.
would, good choice. Yeah, something that has give you a little chuckle. You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
supposed
So
to scare me. You
we
know,
have some ideas cooking along. The one idea I'm working on now is about this psychiatrist who experimented, did an accidental overdose of this psychedelic, and now he's gone bonkers. And the question is, it's just a long story, but it's a pretty funny story.
I'm
That'll be
already kind of smiling at the possibilities.
Would you mind if I put a link to your book on my school website?
Oh no, go ahead. Of course, yeah, happy to. I just want to get the word out. I think we can really take care of seniors safely.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody has to have a bad side effect. I think you just work their way up slowly, and either they say this doesn't work, they say I don't like how the THC makes me feel, or they say I feel a lot better. And I just think this could be so safe.
Oh, absolutely.
And there is the alternative to offer too. You know, if they don't like this, you know, any psychoactive effects, they could use CBD, which
Oh,
works.
absolutely, of course.
Beautifully.
I find that when it comes to pain, CBD helps some, but if someone really has pain, they're probably going to need some THC. But again, the doses can be low. They work really well together. But but yeah, people need to understand it's just like any other medication. It doesn't work for everybody, and it has some side effects. But you could use it in a really more or less safe manner. And I just really want people to use it in a safe way. If they take too much, they get turned off the entire. They'll never try it again if they take too much.
100%. 100%.
What's your opinion about using CBD for addiction?
Well, the data is emerging. Some of the initial data I've seen is really interesting. People who were had been addicted to opiates, newly abstinent, were given CBD, and they had less of a response to drug cues that the scientists exposed them to. And then other studies where they give them a big dose, 800 milligrams of CBD, they smoke fewer cigarettes in the next week. But these are pretty preliminary studies. I think it needs to be studied a lot more. I think it has a lot of potential. I think CBD could potentially be helpful with cannabis addiction because it kind of indirectly stimulates your endocannabinoid system and can help with some of the withdrawal symptoms. But the jury is still out on CBD for addiction, but I'm personally very excited about it.
I did use CBD. I was addicted to benzos, and I did use CBD during my withdrawal.
Helpful?
Yes, it was.
That is the worst withdrawal. I went through that as well.
It was horrible, horrible.
Literally the worst. That's way worse than opiates. When they put me in rehab, I had been on a huge dose of Klonopin. This is all my memoir, so I'm not spilling.
That was my drug too.
I was on 5 milligrams of Klonopin a night, and I was actually taking about 8 milligrams of Klonopin a night. And I walk into this rehab, and they're like, we don't give controlled substances. And they stopped me abruptly overnight on all that Klonopin. And they put me on Seroquel, gabapentin, and phenobarbital instead. It was you're supposed to get people off Klonopin over 2 years. You slowly taper it down so they don't have a seizure and die. These nutcases at rehab just took me off cold turkey and put me on all these other sedating drugs. It was the weirdest thing. But I'm sorry you had to go through that because that is the worst withdrawal and it lasts forever. If I had to pick between opiate withdrawal and benzo withdrawal, I'd pick opiate withdrawal any day.
Yeah, that's what everyone says. But I wasn't attracted to opioids. However, I did work with a really good psychiatrist, and he was on the same, verb as you. What he did was he took me off of everything, and he weaned me down to Klonopin. And he weaned me down to such a small dose. He said, this is the smallest dose you can go down to. He said, but you need to stay on this for a while. So I did.
No, and it lets your brain adapt. If you just stop abruptly, that's really dangerous.
Oh yeah,
he did it the right way, and believe me, it was not fun doing it the wrong way.
No, I know the wrong way put me out. So, listen, we have to get you a date for the network also.
Sure, happy.
Right? They're excited that you're going to be coming back because I know you were on the network once before.
Yeah,
and yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. Does anyone else have questions? Comments?
I weeks worth of them, but
Weeks worth,
but
okay.
it's really well-rounded and complete. I thoroughly enjoyed increasing my knowledge and kind of getting a little more jazzed up, and it'll be fun trying to help turn people on to your book, because I find it to be, I mean, you are who you are, and to be that somebody, I would love to say, yeah, this is top of the field for what we're talking about there. And there's going to be no other book like it out at the level that you're talking about here. And I'm kind of proud to know you, to know the person who's putting this out. And I appreciate you being on the podcast twice. And I probably, actually, I could probably say exactly what I said last time you were on about, so like, can we get you to commit to coming on again sometime?
I'd be happy to. It would be my pleasure. Hopefully, I don't have to write another book to do that.
No. Hopefully, we don't have to wait till you do. Yeah, this has been thoroughly good. This is going to be top drawer in the archives for real.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
Peter.
you.
Really.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It's really a pleasure talking to you. Thanks for inviting me, Sue. And I look forward to being in the network. It's going to be really fun.
Okay, good. I'll be in touch. Okay.
All right. You guys have a good night.
You too. Thank you. It was great
Bye.
meeting you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, this was great.
Dr. Peter Grinspoon, everybody. Hey, that was amazing.
So
Wow.
Lynn, did you not love him? Okay.
Yeah, he was great. Great.
When Kathy and
You'll enjoy using his book though, because his book is generic. So you won't be talking to a professional staff. You're going to be talking to, everybody.
Right.
And that's important. It's important the way that his book is written like that too. That's what I enjoyed when I picked it up. I was like, oh man, Liz, you got to use this one.
well,
I can't wait. I just had to wait.
It's simple.
until
It's simple.
payday.
You know what? It's simple reading. It's simple reading.
And
it's not
that's,
expensive.
that's what seniors need. You need the KISS method. Keep it simple, stupid.
Mhm.
And that's what they need.
when I
That's
find
what they
that-
want. They don't want all the,
Hey, I'm going to say this.
you know.
When I found a podcast that he was on that had been up for 9 hours, I'm like, get the hell out of here. I'm just looking for something. And that Kathy sat down and watched it with me. And we didn't have, it was exactly enough time to finish watching it at the time this came on. So I had to gain a couple of minutes, and when he was being maybe asked a question, I'd fast forward a little bit. But he was saying something at one point, and I said to Kathy, he's describing Liz exactly. He was saying pretty much the same things you do in his own imitable way, if that's the right word. I never used it.
That's a word.
Inimitable. I try to say it real quick,
Yeah. My husband uses that word.
Yeah. Well, people of our
Of course. Of our stature.
yes, exactly. But so that was good, and
That makes me feel
yeah,
good.
that's a real good connection for you, Liz, to be able to, as you do what you do, bring him to people as well, because it's exactly the same thing. And then when they know that, wow, she knows Peter Grinspoon, we all get listened to differently. I was going to say to him, hey, listen, you can say exactly what you just said, and I could say the same thing.
Nobody
A
listens.
legislator or somebody, and they are going to hear it totally different. That's why I was like, I felt like a little kid, a little impish kid when I was waiting for him to explain how he'd be the perfect person in the whole world to get our president to help out, if he would just, and yeah, he's not, I could try too, but it wouldn't work even if I could get somebody's attention. So anyway, I like planting seeds like that. And of course, other people can dream about what it would be like to win the lottery. I'll be dreaming about what if he actually did talk to the asshole, and an asshole did something for himself that was real good for us too, meaning Trump asshole. And but
We
it's
know who you meant.
yeah, it's sort of like, to me, if he actually did somehow get through, and if it actually did promote this to happen, I feel like I did something just for making that little kid suggestion to him, like a hot
Kathy,
potato.
what did you think?
Oh, it was very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I liked it.
we were doing that the muting and back, so I could real casually keep listening and talking without anybody hearing, because it's like almost being at a movie. How do you say something a little bit, you do that, I mean,
Yeah, I stayed on mute too most
yeah,
of it.
but I get to do that for doing
Ventriloquist,
that.
like a
Yeah.
ventriloquist.
Yeah, and it works,
Mm-hmm. What did you say, Lefty? Were you talking to us?
Like a ventriloquist.
Yeah.
You're talking like with your mouth not moving.
I never do stuff like that. I just put my hand in front of it, like a baseball player going out to the pitching mound. They all talk like this, I'm like, come on, don't flatter yourself. There's no linguistic lip reader gonna real quick let somebody know what you're talking about. I always thought that if I were a pitcher and doing that, and I hate that, I'd be out there talking one day and I'd be doing like this, and I talk without losing my lips, and you know what I'm saying, even though you can't hear the ends, and it's. I just like to blow that apart, It's sort of like lower, because they put you like right on camera. Millions of people are watching. I'd keep doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I hear what I'm saying. I can't control myself. Sorry.
We got you.
This concludes our podcast.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, where's Johnny tonight?
I don't know. I thought he was coming on.
Where's
Lefty,
Johnny?
real quick, what's that in front of your computer?
Yeah, what is that?
That is Angelo's chili dogs. Best chili dogs.
Oh, okay.
around.
There's the umbrella. Yeah, I see it.
That's,
Angelo's.
that's the intersection where I do my laps.
Well, name that intersection. What kind of promo is that? The
Right?
intersection of 49th and
Broadway.
Broadway
Yeah.
and Bayonne.
Come to Angelo's Best Chili Dogs. They will give you the best chili dogs of your life, and you can watch me do laps around the intersection while you eat your dogs.
We watch you every day.
That's
We can't
hilarious.
escape.
It's like the hilarious part of maybe 3 or 4 people walking into Angelo's and going, "Is this where Lefty does his laps?" And then ordering food. I feel like I should do that one day. Just travel up there. We could go up, walk in, and be those people. They'd never know. It would be kind of fun, And then
We should all walk in there with the mask on.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And then we go out and meet you.
I like that idea.
Yeah. All 22.
Okay, Lefty, the floor is yours.
Thank you, CMMNJ, UFCW, Arlo Glass, Overmachine.com, and sativacross.org. Speaking of laps, let's see. We tried to do this before and it didn't work. Let's try it again. Let's see if we can get this to work. All right, you guys have to mute. I have to.
Okay.
It's still choppy. I don't know what's going on there. Maybe I'll try Facebook. Let me check Facebook.
You know what? I think there's some internet issues going on because Jay got booted off before, and I had problems all day. Well, not all day, but most of the day, even with the television.
Does it remind anybody else of musical chairs? Da, 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 da. And everybody sits down, and there's not enough seats. You know,
What was that? What was that game called?
musical chairs.
Musical chairs. Oh,
Chairs,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Parties.
the eight seats and 9 people dancing around them or whatever, and the music stops.
Music stops. Right.
Come on, I was trying to. It's real hard to stop in the middle of doing that.
Because you try and keep near a chair.
Yeah, yeah. We both got chairs. I don't know who missed. I do like the live counter up there. I forgot. Sometimes on a really good podcast, I make notes of the time setting so I can go back to the replay and then re-access them better. That works pretty good. I can go back to 140, 42 to find out what it was like when we couldn't get the intro to work without stopping. In case I ever want to revisit this, I know where to go. 140, 55, 56, 57. That was part of it.
I'm supposed to do a thing with Marina about phantom pain, cannabis and phantom pain.
Oh.
But Marina doesn't have phantom pain, so she's no help at all. I love her to death, but really, I said to her, she said, I don't have phantom pain. I said, okay, all right, well, that doesn't help me. Because all the research I'm doing is that nothing stops phantom pain because there is nothing there. You know, the limb is gone. But the neurotransmitters
that's got to be
there.
Scary and painful. Yeah,
I know.
Can't imagine it. I mean, I can imagine it, but yeah, and it sounds like it can be pretty intense at times too. You know, that's not fair.
No, it's really, really fucked up. What's the worst pain you ever had? Your leg? When you had your
Oh yeah.
Oh geez.
I seriously, the pain, I couldn't relax my muscles. You know what it takes to not scream out in pain, going. And I was being told, breathe. You know, they're fiddling around me, and I'm spitting out. Why? I'm gonna pass out.
Deep breaths.
Shit, you know, and it lasted for days. I would pass out from pain. I would, or something. I don't know. I would just wake up and I'd still have pain. It would come really, really, really hard, you know. And it was so far beyond any pain. It was different. I mean, it was a really different experience.
He called me from the ambulance. And I couldn't understand one word he was saying.
I called from the ambulance. Yeah. Okay. When I broke my feet.
When you broke your.
Yeah, my hand just actually maybe God did that. He muted me. Yeah. Anyway, I had my phone in my side pocket, and I couldn't be I was on my side when they got there, and they wanted to keep me in that position. So now I'm in the ambulance on my side. And amongst all that pain, it's really hurting my hip where my phone is. You know, I mean,
yeah.
Fuck this, holy shit. So I took the phone out to get rid of the pain, and I thought, I'll call Kathy. Now, they don't notice I'm doing this because they're doing what they do, and they've already got me stabilized enough for the ride. Nobody's like hovering over me. And all of a sudden, I was like, I fell. I'm going to the hospital.
Oh, jeez.
Where? And
Thank God you never gave birth.
Yeah, and then they're
right.
Okay, yeah, hey, that'd be worse probably. But
the worst pain I ever had was shingles.
Yeah.
Shingles. Yeah, I've heard that from
oh my God.
My doctor's been trying to talk me into getting the shot.
Get it.
Don't.
Get it.
I'm going to say don't. You know why? Because you're activating. We all have that virus in our body. So you're going to activate it. Okay.
Yeah.
I would wait. I wouldn't do it. That's just my opinion on most shots.
I was bedridden for 10 days.
But you're immunosuppressed and you have a lot of other things going on.
Yeah, that's true too. But my daughter had it, said the same. Anybody I've ever talked to have said the same thing. Yeah. It is the worst pain in the world. It actually felt like somebody was ripping the muscle off of my bones.
Yeah.
And I still have nerve damage from it.
Yeah.
I have a part of my arm that's still
Did you
numb.
get the shot?
No.
Okay.
And there's another,
Or I should say shots.
there's another
Yeah,
kind
it's two of them.
of stinging pain that actually didn't rival the pain I was talking about with the original, but when I had the external fixation device, which is like right out of an erector set holding,
I know what it is.
Yeah.
We know what it is.
when it's doing that, you gotta clean out where it goes in so the blood doesn't coagulate and adhere to which meant Kathy had to do like a shoe shine thing with a medicated wipe, and it stung so bad that it wasn't like that other pain, but I couldn't not issue an audible. And I would put a pillow over my face and I'm like, okay, I'm mentally ready. I know how it feels. I know it's not really hurting me. And yet it would be, I'd give in. I never beat it once. And I guess that's like what I would call pussy pain. I mean, how could I not handle that? I don't mean, wussy pain. The inside voice beat the outside voice.
Yeah, no pussy pain.
Yeah, well, wussy pain.
You wouldn't deal with pussy pain.
No. Again, and that's another. Who are you saying like getting advice from somebody that doesn't have a right giving that advice? It came reminded me of Bill Burr saying something, but yeah, right. I wouldn't be the one you'd want to listen to or to share a panel talking about anything like that.
It was like a big Q-tip. It was about this big.
Yeah.
And it had like a big foam thing around it.
Oh no, yeah,
Oh,
you did that first. Yeah.
It's nasty.
But it was funny. I was laughing like a maniacal pain laugh, because that's what happens when you laugh at yourself issuing a pain audible. But I'm laughing at myself doing it because I know it's unnecessary and I can't stop myself. And it doesn't matter anyway, But the fact that I failed every time made me just laugh, which really sounded like fucking Jack Nicholson in a bad movie or something,
Here's Johnny. I think for me, I think knee replacement surgery was the worst.
Well, thank you, because I'm having knee trouble and I refuse.
Yeah, but you know what? It's gotten better. I was one of the first patients. I had my knees done 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I had a friend who was one of the last ones to get both at the same time.
That's ridiculous. That's
Did it? She had a good one.
But they do that because once you have one knee done, you may possibly not return for the other one. I had no choice. My other knee just crushed out. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. I have a lot of different things. So my joints pop out. Ehlers-Danlos syndrome.
Yeah, that's what Jackie Rickert had.
My nephew has it, and my daughter thinks she might actually have it.
Yeah, it's genetic. It's genetic.
How do you know?
But your joints come out of socket easier.
They come out. And I actually started to, what I remember is when I was about 10, 11 years old, I used to just smack my knees back into place. Yeah. But, when you're a kid on the street, that's what you do, right?
Okay. Yeah, I know that.
Yeah, it's cool.
I know that pain, but it wasn't a knee. It was pinky because I was playing over 35 softball and I love baseball and all that really good. And I'd never slid head first, and I'm going to slide into third base, and I'd never done that. I'm adventurous, and so I'm trying to beat out whatever. And the thing is, when you slide feet first, where you take off from for your slide, is way closer to the bag than when at full speed you lunge towards the bag. So I found myself doing like Superman coming in for a landing, and I couldn't believe how fast I got to third base. So I had to put my hand out, but the pinky hit it and nothing else did. And then what happened was my pinky looked like, it was the knuckle came back all the way over. So the fingernail was where the mid knuckle is. It looked like a stubby little fucking pinky, which freaked me out, the look of it. So I jump up to the third base and I go, pull my finger, like a fart joke. And he's freaking out when he looks at my hand. And luckily we had a crazy guy on the dugout way across by first base, came running over. He'd never pulled the finger before, So basically I think squatted down. I put it on my knee and I held my hand so he could pull it. And damned if it didn't snap back in, and it really hurt though. Now I'm
That's what we do in the ER when you dislocate a joint.
Not a real.
You just pull it back in.
Man, no, 34-year-old man tapes it up next to the other finger, puts the glove back on, gets to shortstop where he's got to play because that's where I played. And 2 pitches later, a one-hop laser of a hit smacked into those fingers in my glove. I threw the glove off and never played softball since. Yeah, nothing's normal about my life, is it? Fuck. Anyway,
I think we could all say that, though.
Where's Lefty?
he's there, but he ended the
Not supposed to
podcast.
say that.
Oh, he did.
Yeah, we're done.
There he is.
Smoking pot,
Oh, I see his hand.
All right, let's try it again. Let's try muting. See if this works.
Bring in the bomb squad, I'm gonna get mine. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time, don't tell me how you all been down. When you smile at my face and you play me like a clown, just a fool bitch, so just step back. I'm mad that when I come down strapped, I thought you was my piece, but you play me out now. I'm mad as hell and I'm full of doubt. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty, hey, let's roll. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty, let's roll. Back on the scene, it's time to get mean. I'm a lean. Revolution machine. What people say they stay this way, but today is as good as any day. I feel slightly this. Let's resist. Raise your hand and pump like this. Promises all the time. Don't cross the line, cause you know it's mine. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty, let's roll. Who you wanna roll with? Who you wanna roll with? Lefty, let's roll.
Still a little choppy, but those are fun. Those are fun to make because I do backwards laps in the intersection, and then I play the backwards.
You had the backwards ones going on Facebook earlier. I saw it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did it on purpose, right?
Yeah, it's fun.
It's cute.
Yeah, I don't need to put this in a coffee cup. I'm only kidding. It's always coffee. I'm off duty now. I have my my INR. Damn it, it was below 2, and when I get a check for a warfarin, and now I got to go next week because it was just below, and it's the first time I didn't have a beer or 2 the night before, which makes it helps get the right effect. Now I got to go back, so I'm having beer for my INR. It is medical.
Okay.
If it
That was a
works for you.
Well,
All
actually, yeah.
Lefty, I'm going back on mute. I know you're probably done.
Our list begins with Cheryl, Sabina, Diane, Gracie, Cindy Mae, Marie, Jack, Joan, Randy, Polly, Bill, Chad, Jeremy, Colette, Matt, Troy, Russ, Roger, Jay, Ella, Hattie, Jackie, Anthony, Jake, Armando, Felicia, Lynn, Dan, Sean, Joyce, Lori, Frank, Brian, Flo, Carl, Thorne, Frank, Lorraine, Terry, Charlotte, Cher, Jaybird, Michael, Marley, Colette, Brendan, Red, Rico, Lou, Becky, Lawanda, Chip, Paul, Lisa, Marcus, Gary, Julia, Wayne, Waxy, Joe Marie, Paul, Jeff.
This concludes our podcast.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Yes, have a good weekend, all, and thank you. This was very good. This was a good podcast.
This was really good. This was one for the books.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this was good. And it was kind of destined to be that way, but it all intersected with paths in our own orbit so nicely. It was like he orbited around everything each of us kind of cares about, our own focus points. That was like freaking amazing. I think it was right up
He's
there.
a nice guy, isn't he? He's just
Yeah.
He's
just a
great
nice
guy,
man.
Yeah.
And,
Okay, well, I got to run.
Okay, Liz.
okay.
Have a good night, and
dreams.
thank you. You too.
See you then.
Okay, bye-bye.
We shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh yeah,
Peace out, everybody.
one thing though, it was just because you didn't ask. He already had your 3 questions for everybody, I imagine, last time.
Sure.
It's rare to get out, but the podcast I watched before that, he didn't ask those questions, but he was giving an example, and it involved, well, that'd be whatever in what was it, a Who concert or?
Yes.
And a Who concert at a stadium that I may or may not have attended. It was just because he was telling a personal excerpt as if it was not attributed to anybody, and when he added that very innocuous. Yes. Yeah. I like to use a word or two each day I normally don't use, and I'm 50-50, but when he, without changing his expression or anything, just said, which I may or may not have attended, but it was almost like Lefty, you're on air in the middle of something, what? You're on the air. I already warned you. I said that you're on the air, and go right to something. And I just found that almost kind of revealing, because it was sort of like, I wouldn't have guessed you'd be at that concert using that.
Right.
Well, it was, I don't know if he's doing psilocybin or something. I mean, I'll go back and watch.
He was an opioid addict. He told you that.
Yeah, well,
So I don't know.
Well, that he's got personal experience, I think, makes it all the more appropriate.
Real.
That I mean, it's exactly what you need. I mean, I'm wearing a compression sock only because the guy that told me I needed to, and then when I went back, not really. But he
gave him a lecture.
No, he gave me a lecture after simply lifting up his pants, showing me a compression stocking that he was wearing.
Uh-huh.
See, that's the analogy that all of a sudden I'm like, that got me to listen. So I think that's a similar thing in Peter's case, that, people are going to listen extra intently, knowing he knows what it's like and he knows what he's talking about all in one person. It's unimpeachable.
It's funny that you bring that up, though, because I find, it's probably because I'm old now, but I lose patience when I start to listen to others, like when I'm involved with the network or what have you, and there's no experience behind what they're talking about, and it kind of blows me away a little bit. It's like, well, how about like you try it? I don't know, but maybe that's the wrong way to think too. I don't know.
I don't know. It's the lack of personal experience and lack of other access to others' experiences when people are really exuberant about being advocates. And, that's why I'm glad we cover the important stuff. Like, you got to know the actual detriments. You got to know what to stipulate to, and then move around it. And as opposed to, no one's ever died from cannabis, no one's ever overdosed. It's like, whether or not it can be identifiably backed up, it's too much, like, it's like hyperbole, whether it's true or not.
Yeah.
That's why I always like, and I say, it's, if you're gonna not like somebody as a legislator, you got to know some things you can agree with them on, because until our president, well, actually recently, he was proving me wrong, that it's really hard sometimes, but there always is something that person has done that you can agree with, and to work that into a conversation always gives more credence to what you say afterwards. I mean, subconsciously, maybe,
Yeah, and I think that's where every time, it's mentioned about the asshole. What is that ringing?
Is that me?
It's not me.
Probably that's a female.
No, I think it's me.
It's you?
Yeah, I think I didn't see it. Something went off on. Okay, I'll find out. I'm expecting my delivery.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And